It's time to let your mind wander, rebels, into a world of stars and planets, of lunar eclipses and poetry. We're going to hear the story of the girl who solved the mystery of why the moon turns red. Have you ever seen a red moon? Well, it happens once every 2.5 years. And one girl, named Wang Zhenyi, wanted to know why. Let's get settled in. Snuggle down, close your eyes, and begin to imagine. Let your mind go on a bedtime journey. Zhenyi loved to stare at the stars and solve math problems and write poems. She lived in China over 200 years ago, at a time when women weren't allowed to go to school. But she was so curious about how the universe worked, so passionate about discovering the unknown, that she became her own teacher. She learned how to write poems from her grandmother. She learned how to shoot a bow and arrow from her warrior mentor, Ah. She learned about different cultures by traveling down the Yangtze River, or Changjiang, with her father. But guess where she learned about outer space, or what we call astronomy? She learned it from herself. When Zhenyi was 10 years old, she traveled from her home along the winding blue waters of the Yangtze River. From Jiangning, or what we call Nanjing today, all the way to her grandparents' house far in the north, in a town called Jilin. Her grandparents' house had an arched roof made of gray tiles that blended into the night sky. On winter evenings, when the ground was wrapped in a cozy blanket of fluffy white snow and the air was still and silent, Zhenyi would step out of her grandparents' book-filled home and look up at the starry sky. Can you see her now, standing in the night, as the moonlight touches her pearly skin and shines purple against her black hair? She is wearing a blue changfu robe. The magical moonlight turns its wrinkles into waves like the flowing Yangtze River. One night, in the starlit darkness of Jilin, Zhenyi saw something she had never seen before. The sky held a full moon, but the edge of that moon was so bright, it looked like it was on fire. Slowly, the fire and darkness traveled across the moon until it looked like a red circle, glowing from within. Zhenyi was stunned. What was this magic that could turn the moon red, she wondered. She hurried back into the house to ask her grandmother. "Nai-nai, Nai-nai," she said, "what has happened to Yue Liang, the moon?" Her grandmother looked up at the moon, whose redness was cooling into the black of the night. She looked down at Zhenyi and said, "There is much you still have to learn about the ways of the world. This is Yue Shi. The moon is being eaten by the dog of the sky, Tiangou." Zhenyi wanted to know more about Tiangou, the dog of the sky. So every night, she stepped out into the cool winter air of Jilin and looked up at the sky to study it. She wasn't entirely sure the moon had turned red because of Tiangou. The mystery was still unsolved for her. Every night, Zhenyi climbed into her bed with a mind full of stars and planets and questions. And every morning, she jumped out of her cozy sheets to answer those questions. She would walk to her grandfather's books. He had more than 1,000 of them. She would pick one about math or astronomy, sit at the wooden writing desk by the courtyard, and begin reading in search of an answer to the mystery of the moon. The rough pages would flip through her fingers like silk. As Zhenyi searched for why the moon had turned red, the black brushstrokes of words and numbers rose from the pages and danced in her mind. The two intersecting lines of shi that marked the number 10, the sharp swirls that marked the word huo, or fire. When she stumbled upon an interesting idea, she pulled out her 4 jewels of study, 文房四宝, a sheet of paper, a block of ink, a dark inkstone, and a brush. She would drop a little water on the inkstone and grind the ink into a black pond, rich and deep as the night sky. She would dip her brush and begin writing her ideas onto the precious paper in characters, where each word was a picture overflowing with meanings. Sometimes a book was hard to understand, or a math problem was hard to solve. Zhenyi would put her brush down. But she loved thinking about the planets so much, she couldn't stop. Her inner fire, her passion, her 热情 kept burning, and she picked the brush back up. But on one such day, when Zhenyi had set her brush down, she realized she could do an experiment. She took an oil lamp and 2 balls and held them up in a line. She saw how the shadow of the lamp fell on the farthest ball. She discovered that Tiangou, the dog of the sky, was actually just the earth itself. The moon had turned red because the sun, the earth, and the moon were all in one line. When the earth is in between the sun and the moon, the sun's rays curve through the earth's atmosphere and fall in a red shadow on the moon. The red moon was a lunar eclipse. She had solved the mystery. Uncovering the mystery of the red moon only made Zhenyi want to learn as much about our universe as she possibly could. She eventually wrote 12 books, created her own styles of astronomy and poetry, and even wrote books that made math fun and accessible beyond the world of elite men, all without ever going to school. Zhenyi was driven by her inner fire to learn and discover the world in her own way. Now, let's turn off the light if you haven't already, and imagine yourself slowly floating down a river. When she was a teenager, Zhenyi and her father spent many years on a boat, meandering down the turquoise waters of the Changjiang, the Yangtze River, twisting and turning between green mountains that rose into the sky like the spirits of ancestors long forgotten. At night, she lay down on the rocking boat under the starry sky with its nightlights embracing her. Zhenyi closes her eyes and imagines the magical silence of outer space. The breeze tickling her skin as she listens in the stillness to her inner fire, crackling softly, keeping her warm as she flows down the river into the adventures awaiting in her dreams, in her meng.
This podcast is a production of Rebel Girls. It's based on the book series Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. This story was produced by Katie Sprenger, with sound design and mixing by Craig Billmeyer. It was written by Tara Kola. Fact-checking by Joe Radigan. Our executive producer was Katie Sprenger. Thank you to the whole Rebel Girls team who make this podcast possible. Stay Rebel.